The metal bins crashed forward with a deafening bang. Thousands of bolts exploded across the trailer floor. The warehouse supervisor's smug grin vanished instantly. And for the first time in years, he was the one staring at a mess he couldn't walk away from. Honestly? The look on his face was worth every second. If you've ever had a boss who seemed to enjoy making people's lives miserable, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready for one of the most satisfying workplace revenge stories you'll hear today. This happened more than 25 years ago, back when I worked as a truck driver. Now, trucking isn't an easy job. Long hours, tight schedules, traffic, bad weather, unexpected delays. You learn quickly that the job is stressful enough without somebody deliberately making it harder. Unfortunately, we had exactly that kind of person. A warehouse supervisor. And this guy seemed to wake up every morning asking himself one question. How can I ruin someone else's day? Nobody liked him. Not the warehouse workers. Not the drivers. Not even some of the office staff. His favorite hobby was inventing pointless rules. One week he'd decide employees couldn't take breaks in certain areas. The next week he'd suddenly change procedures nobody asked him to change. Every decision seemed designed to frustrate people. As a result, staff turnover was insane. People would get hired, last a few weeks, then quit. Some lasted months. Very few lasted years. The warehouse was basically a revolving door. Meanwhile, management did almost nothing. We complained constantly. Again and again. Nothing changed. The supervisor always seemed protected. And because management never held him accountable, his behavior got worse. Much worse. Eventually, he started targeting drivers too. One of his favorite tricks involved urgent pickups. Whenever a customer needed something collected, he'd sometimes forget to pass the information along until the very last possible second. Then he'd act innocent. Oh, sorry. Must have slipped my mind. Nobody believed him. The timing was always too convenient. Always designed to inconvenience someone. Always designed to create problems. And one evening he finally pushed me too far. I had spent the entire day on the road. Hours of driving. Deliveries completed. Paperwork finished. I was exhausted. More importantly, I was excited to get home. I had already called my wife. I remember that conversation clearly. I'll be home soon. Those were my exact words. Soon. Not hours later. Not after another unexpected job. Soon. I was the last driver returning to the depot that evening. The yard was almost empty. The warehouse staff had already gone home. The sun was starting to disappear. I could practically taste the end of the workday. Then the supervisor appeared. He walked into the traffic office and casually informed the controller about an urgent pickup. 4 small bins of bolts. 2 different head sizes. 2 different lengths. Nothing complicated. Except for one thing. The pickup location was 30 minutes away. And it was directly on the route I had already driven earlier. Meaning he could have told me hours ago. He knew about it. The schedulers should have known about it. I should have known about it. Instead, he waited until the very end of my shift. Deliberately. I could feel frustration building inside me. But I did the pickup. Because that's what professionals do. I drove out there. Collected the bins. Secured the load. Returned to the yard. By the time I got back, it was much later than it should have been. Then came the moment that changed everything. The supervisor was waiting. Smiling. Actually smiling. As I climbed out of the truck, he started bragging. Laughing about how he'd ruined my evening. Laughing about how I'd be getting home late. Laughing because he thought it was funny. The anger that hit me in that moment is hard to describe. My hands tightened into fists. My jaw clenched. Years of frustration suddenly came rushing back. Every complaint management had ignored. Every employee he'd bullied. Every driver he'd messed with. Every person who'd quit because of him. And standing there was the man responsible. Proud of himself. Enjoying it. That was my breaking point. I walked directly into the general manager's office. The manager was still there. I explained exactly what had happened. I told him the supervisor had deliberately delayed the pickup. I told him he'd openly admitted it. I told him he'd been bragging about it. The general manager listened. Then shrugged. Shrugged. That was it. No concern.
No accountability. No consequences.
Just a shrug. At that moment I realized something important. Nothing was ever going to change. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not next year. The company had chosen its side. And it wasn't ours. I looked at the manager. Calmly. Completely calm. Then I said something that confused him. I'm going back to my truck to get my kit. He nodded, probably assuming I was finally heading home. What happened next was something neither of them expected. I walked out to my trailer, opened the side curtains, removed the securing straps. Then I called both the manager and the supervisor outside. They walked over looking confused. I pointed toward the load. 4 bins. Thousands of bolts. Mixed sizes. Mixed lengths. Then I looked directly at the manager. You allow him to bully people and make their lives miserable. I pointed at the supervisor. You both can deal with the consequences. I climbed into the cab. Started the truck. Put it into reverse. Backed up sharply. Then slammed on the brakes. The trailer jolted. The bins tipped. And suddenly thousands upon thousands of bolts spilled across the trailer floor. Rolling everywhere. Mixing together completely. Every size. Every type. Every bin. Combined into one giant metallic nightmare. The sound was incredible. Like a waterfall made entirely of steel. The supervisor's face turned white. The manager stared in disbelief. And I finally smiled. For the first time all evening. Sort it yourselves. Then I added one final sentence. You can stick your job up your ass. I climbed down. Locked the truck. Walked inside. Clocked out. And left. No dramatic speech.
No argument.
No second thoughts. Just gone. The best part? I already had a backup plan. There was a driver shortage at the time. Experienced drivers were in demand everywhere. Especially drivers with hazardous goods permits. That very night I contacted an agency. The next morning I started a new job. Just like that. A fresh start.
No toxic supervisor.
No pointless games. No management shrugging their shoulders. A day later one of my former co-workers called me. The first thing he said was, "You won't believe what happened after you left." Apparently the manager and supervisor had spent the next 2 hours sorting bolts. 2 full hours. Thousands of pieces. Separating sizes. Checking lengths. Trying to undo the mess. The same people who loved creating problems for everyone else were suddenly trapped cleaning up their own. And honestly, that was all the revenge I needed. Nobody got hurt. Nothing dangerous happened. The delivery still went out. But for 2 glorious hours, the supervisor experienced the frustration he'd spent years inflicting on everyone else. Sometimes karma isn't complicated. Sometimes it's a trailer full of mixed-up bolts. And sometimes the most satisfying revenge is simply walking away while the people who created the problem are forced to clean up the mess. If this story made you smile, hit that like button and subscribe for more Reddit revenge stories. And tell us in the comments, what would have been your breaking point with a boss like this? Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.